Michael Morton spent 25 years in Texas prisons for a murder he did not commit. The evidence that would have proved his innocence sat in the prosecutor's files the entire time, known to the prosecutor and concealed from the defense. That prosecutor was Ken Anderson, the Williamson County District Attorney, who later became a state district judge. When the truth finally emerged, Anderson was convicted of criminal contempt and served 5 days in jail. Michael Morton served 25 years. His son Eric grew up without a father, and believing his father had killed his mother. Eric was 3 when Christine Morton was murdered, and when he told relatives that a monster had hurt his mommy and that daddy wasn't home, a statement the prosecutor never shared with the jury. Michael and Christine Morton had been married 7 years in 1986 and lived in Williamson County, north of Austin, with their son Eric. On August 12th, the night before the murder, Christine wrote a private note expressing frustration about the household. The next morning, Michael left for work. When he returned, Christine had been beaten to death in their bedroom. Their son was unharmed. Investigators focused on Michael almost immediately. The intimate note was found in the house. It, along with other relevant material, remained in the prosecutor's file and never reached the defense. The legal obligation at issue is long-standing and categorical. Under Brady v. Maryland, prosecutors must disclose evidence favorable to the defense. The rule is simple in theory and consequential in practice. In Morton's case, Ken Anderson's files contained multiple items any competent defense team would have used: Christine's note, investigator notes about a green van seen near the house the morning of the murder, and contemporaneous interviews in which 3-year-old Eric said a monster hurt his mother while his father was not home. Each item alone could have produced reasonable doubt. Together, they painted an alternate timeline the jury never saw. The human cost was severe. Christine Morton, 36, was killed on August 13, 1986. The man who actually committed the murder, Mark Allen Norris, went on to kill at least one other woman while Michael Morton sat in prison. Deborah Baker was murdered in 1988. DNA later linked Norris to both crimes. Michael Morton was exonerated in 2011. He had lost a quarter century with his son, watched his name become synonymous with guilt, and endured the erosion of family and opportunity that follows a wrongful conviction. The discovery unfolded in stages. The Innocence Project took on Morton's case and sought DNA testing. A bandana found in a neighboring field at the time of the murder had never been analyzed in 1986. When tested in 2011, it produced DNA from Christine Morton and a separate profile that matched Mark Allen Norris, who was already in the national database. That link exposed an alternative perpetrator and forced a re-examination of the original investigation and the files that had been withheld. Legal consequences followed, but they were limited. Norris pleaded guilty to Christine Morton's murder in 2013. Ken Anderson, confronted by what his files revealed, resigned his judgeship and agreed to a settlement. He was convicted of criminal contempt, sentenced to 10 days, and served 5. He surrendered his law license and was ordered to perform community service. For many observers, a prosecutor being jailed at all represented an unusual accountability. For others, 5 days behind bars for contributing to 25 years of wrongful imprisonment was painfully inadequate. The systemic failure here was not a single bad actor, but the absence of effective enforcement. Brady requires disclosure, but compliance historically relied on prosecutorial good faith. Defense teams lacked access to full files. Judges rarely conducted independent audits. No routine mechanism existed to verify that favorable evidence had been shared. When a prosecutor chose concealment, the constitutional guarantee depended on the same person who could hide evidence to act honestly. That structural gap has contributed to wrongful convictions nationwide. This case is not an outlier in the broader pattern. The National Registry of Exonerations and Research, by the Innocence Project, document prosecutorial misconduct as a frequent contributor to wrongful convictions, especially long imprisonments. The recurring scenario is familiar. Exculpatory evidence sits in a file. It is not disclosed. A conviction follows. Only years later, through luck, science, or dogged advocacy, is the truth revealed, if it is revealed at all. There was legislative response. In 2013, Texas enacted the Michael Morton Act, requiring open file discovery in felony cases and mandating that prosecutors provide defense counsel with access to evidence, rather than selective disclosures. Morton wrote a memoir, reconnected with his son, and became an advocate for reform. The law is a direct consequence of what happened in Williamson County, an attempt to build institutional safeguards where none had existed. Christine Morton's killer was known to the files but unknown to the jury. The evidence to free Michael Morton lay within reach of the criminal justice system. It remained unused for a generation. Michael lost 25 years. Ken Anderson lost 5 days. Eric grew up with a false story of his father's guilt. A 3-year-old's voice, "Daddy wasn't home," was buried in a file. Subscribe to Case Files TV.